Hi, Professor Kotler. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Susan, I'm happy to be here.
The Wall Street Journal has recently named you number 6 on the 2008 list of best strategic business thinkers. Numbers 1 through 5 are not marketing experts, so we're privileged to be able to say that we have the number 1 marketing expert in the world with us today.
Well, I was very pleased to hear that I even scored in the top 100, so I'm not going to complain.
Well, we consider you to be number 1, and as such, and as a great way in which to get started, define marketing.
You know, I use an expression to remind people what it really is, and I call it CCDVTP. C is for creating, the next C is for communicating, the next D is for delivering, so it's creating, communicating, and delivering. V for value, to a target audience, T, at a profit.
Okay.
So what is marketing? It is creating, communicating, and delivering value to a target market at a profit.
Now, tell us some of the things that marketing is not, because I think there are many people
Marketing is not sales,
Okay.
but includes sales.
Okay.
In fact, Susan, in my long romance with marketing, I have seen 5 stages, and we're in the 5th stage now.
Okay.
Because marketing definitely meant sales when it was first used.
Yes.
And then it started to mean more than promoting an existing product, it meant 4 Ps. Creating a marketing plan about the product, the price, place, and promotion. So that was the 2nd stage. The 3rd stage was segmentation, targeting, and positioning. You're not dealing with a mass market anymore. It has pieces to it and segments, so you want to go after the right ones. And then we moved to the 4th stage because up to now we were only thinking of a transaction. But now we're in the relationship stage, which is to build not only good, loyal customers, but loyal partners. And the 5th stage is brand new, and that is companies are thinking about co-marketing with their customers. That is not just making something and seeing if they're interested, but having them help us make what they would be interested in.
And I think those 5 points are all consistent with something else you've said, which is that marketing is really creating value for the customer.
Absolutely. Understanding the customer well enough to know how the customer sees value.
And I think that's really a timeless concept. I think that's a universal truth, and I think that stood the test of time and will continue to do so.
Yes, I think value is the key word in the marketer's vocabulary.
Okay.
Generating value.
Right. So with this notion of value in mind, what are the 3 most significant changes or evolutions that you've seen in marketing over your career?
We first thought that marketing is going to be handled as an adjunct to a sales department to help the salespeople get orders, so that the salespeople wouldn't have to do their own marketing research, wouldn't have to do their own search for leads, wouldn't have to write ads. So we hired some people to do the things that salespeople didn't want to do. And that was called marketing, and it was an adjunct. It became bigger when we got into brand management and market segment management. So we would have brand managers, market segment managers, and basically that's the stage we're still in now. But it's not the last stage. We have to reach a point where marketing is on the board of the company as much as the CFO, Chief Financial Officer's on the board. Marketing's voice has been small in relation to the other chief players in a company, and I'd like to see it enhanced, which is now happening with the appointment of CMOs, Chief Marketing Officers.
Would you say that an important role of marketing is to support the sales function, to partner with the sales function?
Absolutely, and you know, it hasn't been a good partnership.
Why don't sales and marketing get along?
They represent quite different cultures. The salespeople love to be in the customer's office, selling the customer, and not dealing with a lot of research and planning. remember, the marketer has to really sit in the office a lot of the time, not too much of the time, in order to look at data, collect new data, write marketing plans, revise them. And so they have quite different lifestyles. And the real problem is that unless marketing and sales people start mingling more and aligning themselves more and reaching a point where neither blames the other if sales fall, which is an old fact, finger pointing. So there are two cultures.
Before we move on to some other issues like measuring the return on marketing and so forth, which would be a way in which to reward marketers, I want to ask you a couple of questions about current forms of marketing. Is direct marketing dead? A lot of people think that it is.
Yeah, of course, very few things really die in the social or economic world. They used to say, our newspaper's dead and through, is radio finished by TV? Is advertising finished? That happens to be even a more current question about whether the 30-second commercial is delivering value. But direct marketing is a practice where you basically send out mass mailings or you make mass phone calls, and the return is at the level of 1 or 2% often, and still would make some money for the company, but it's so low when you realize that 99 out of 100 letters did not produce a response. There's a new technique called predictive analytics, which is exciting because it gives us an equation where we could predict from any person who we might send an offer to the probability of purchase. Now, if I get a 0 when I use that equation for that person, I'm not going to send a mail piece. In fact, I may use a cutoff of 50%. Once I do that, I save a lot of money by sending out far less mail, and I get it to the right people who will respond. And so I may get a 20-30% response rate.
So there are actually still people who read print copies that they receive in the snail mail.
Or, you know, now email is being another way to deliver offers.
And what about guerrilla and viral marketing? Are they where it's at, or what's new?
Yeah, I like guerrilla marketing. It's very tactical. It's really a set of little practices that might win a couple of customers and attract attention. It's not systematic enough. And viral marketing is quite different. Viral is the practice of spreading the word around, and it was started by Hotmail because if you wanted them to be your supplier of email connection, you would agree to have every one of your emails end up with brought to you by Hotmail or something. And now viral marketing has expanded in its meaning, but it's a way of drawing attention through the digital world to some company.
Speaking of the digital world, how do you think companies should effectively market to the highly sought after 20 and 30 something generation who are spending increasing amounts of time online and less time reading newspapers, reading magazines, and even in front of the television set? Yes.
I think you have to see what their lifestyle activities are. For example, you'd be amazed at how many people are playing video games throughout the world, against each other from different points in the world. And so some marketers are putting in forms of advertising in their video game structure. We find that there's a lot of blogging going on. And so the question is, how do you capitalize on that? What puzzles me is this phenomena of Facebook and MySpace and other what we call social networks. And how will those be turned into digital advertising success stories? Because the people who are on these social networks did not want advertising. They wanted to communicate with their friends.
When a company has a strong brand, It often seems that a product can sell itself without the support of a robust marketing campaign. So how does a comprehensive marketing strategy enhance the value of a renowned brand such as BMW that you mentioned, or Apple, for instance?
Yeah. Well, I would say that any of those strong brands could stop advertising tomorrow and continue strong for a year, 2 or 3 before the lack of their presence in our mindset will start affecting them. So maybe these companies feel they still want share of mind as an insurance principle against brand erosion. There are brands that are loved by people, and if that love affair is continued through various activities, events, and communications, and not through advertising and so on, then the brand strength can be preserved without the old mass advertising approach. There's different ways to market, by the way. I just want to say there's hard marketing. When they yell at you on the TV commercial, there's soft marketing. There's what appears to be no marketing, which is a form of marketing. And there's anti-marketing, which is another form of marketing. For example, a body shop, Anita Roddick did not like marketing. And she did not like these silly promises that a makeup will make you so attractive and all that. So she was an anti-marketer, but that worked. So we gotta take these 4 different possibilities and put them into the right context.
What are some other famous companies or companies that sell very hot products that do no marketing?
Many of the early years of Starbucks, they didn't do any advertising. All of it was done by customers who liked Starbucks to other customers.
And what would happen to Starbucks if they stopped marketing tomorrow?
Well, their big problem may be new competitors who are offering coffee that's quite good and at a lower price. They've had it wonderful for a while when they were the only game in town that was at the premium level. But basically, I think they have to keep innovating. Starbucks has to remain fresh and innovative.
On a more general note, what are the 3 ideas that have impressed you the most in the last several years?
Well, one idea that is impressive is what I call marketing automation, or automated marketing. If you watch how marketing is done and how a new product is launched and all the collateral material and the ads that have to be put out and reaching retailers and then final customers, you'll see a lot of waste. You'll see a lot of committee work, a lot of redoing and so on. Marketing automation now has some answers to that, which would be sets of software to help manage processes, whether you're doing a brochure, whether you're doing a packaging job, and I think that's a powerful idea. Secondly, I like the new idea that has not surfaced too much yet called narrative branding. Most branding, and I've been responsible for promoting this as well as others, is based on positioning thinking. Find a unique selling proposition, like Motorola has Six Sigma quality, et cetera, and tie yourself to that one virtuous point that is distinctive. Do you know that gets repetitious, that gets boring, that's very static? The alternative is to go to narration and storytelling, where that brand becomes part of your life and you like to know what its history has been and where it is today, and you're waiting for new things to happen. And you're using metaphors, you're using events, you're distributing it through conversations on the internet, and before you know it, the brand becomes a story that you feel is almost personal because you've lived through that story. We've lived through the story of McDonald's. In fact, we believe that McDonald's turnaround in recent times is the result of moving from a single positioning, low cost, good tasting, fast served food, to a narrative relationship over time.
So it's a great way of reinforcing a message without becoming redundant.
Yes, exactly.
Great. Which three companies do you think have the most innovative approaches to marketing?
Well, Procter & Gamble still surprises all of us. So many new products coming out, well tested, and a lower rate of failure, which haunts every company that's going to be innovative. I think Nike has been very successful in keeping performance shoes and then going from shoes to the clothes you should wear when you perform, and now becoming a manager of athletes and so on. It shows a lot of innovative thinking. I believe I think Starbucks belongs on the list. Amazon is amazing. And Google is even more amazing in terms of innovation. I mean, Google, I was satisfied with what they had, but now you can get mapping and you can get so many new things every year seems to open up.
Talk more about Amazon and why you think they're innovative and what's next on the horizon for Jeff Bezos and the world of online book and everything else sales.
Well, you know, the latest initiative was putting out what we call a electronic book, which will store a couple of hundred books. And that was not an innovation on their part because it came out earlier from Sony. But theirs, their book is, they can order from the book itself, the download of books that they get interested in. So it's sort of wired. And I think that the great trait of Jeff Bezos and Amazon is customer-centeredness, making everything as easy as possible for the customer to get what he wants, when he wants a book, when he wants clothing. And I think they're just terrific at that.
I think Jeff does a really good job of putting himself in his customer's shoes.
Yes.
And
yes.
how important is that for marketers to get inside that head? And
we used to say, staple yourself to a day in the life of the customer. We even say to CEOs, manage by walking around. That was a Tom Peters expression. Get out there and live with the customer, and you'll have much more insight than you'll ever get from a marketing research report. By the way, a lot of marketing research is now becoming ethnographic, with cameras in the home by permission, seeing how families get together and eat, how the wife cooks or the person cooks. And so marketing research is also moving in another direction, which is getting at the emotions and the unconscious. Many times we buy something and we're really driven by forces we aren't conscious of ourselves, which really means that asking people for attitudes and to recount why they bought something is only 20% of what really happened. And we have now ways to get into the soul of the decision making.
where did your love of marketing come from? How did you decide that this was the field you were going to pursue for your career?
Well, you know, I'm trained as an economist at University of Chicago and at MIT, having learned my economics from Milton Friedman and then Paul Samuelson, both of which were prize winners, Nobel Prize winners. And frankly, I didn't want to compete because if those two giants can't agree on what good theory is, one being a free marketer and one being a Keynesian, I said, and then I noticed that economics pay no attention to anything but price. They never modeled the effect of advertising and promotion. They never modeled the effect of sales force because they couldn't quantify it enough. And so there was a big gap in what I would call market economics, which is actually what I do. It's market economics. I treat marketing as part of economics.
What are 3 mega trends that you foresee or see on the horizon?
Well, I would say that the empowered customer is something we are living with. Secondly, we see the pace of technology giving us new tools all the time and more power, not only to consumers but to businesses that are ready to adopt new technologies. And then the third is the globalization, which means that if you're lucky and you build a strong product and brand name, you don't have to sell it just in your own country, because Starbucks is making money in so many countries of the world, and so is McDonald's. And the key really is to get something that hits the heartstring of people throughout the world.
Well, that's an interesting point, because absolutely that's the case for Starbucks. But what about a company like Kraft, for instance, where the Oreo in the US is very different than the Oreo in China, but they've latched on to the strong name of Oreo and realized, wow, we can really, go to market with the name Oreo.
Yes, and why should they produce the Oreo in the same way in different countries, as long as the name suggests the same basic treat? And McDonald's is not the same in every country, because they began to notice they became number 2 in the Philippines because Jollibee was becoming number 1, more flavor to the Filipino taste. So even Coca-Cola changes in its sweetness and carbonation in different places. You have to adapt.
Okay. So as a marketer, do you try to create a global strategy, almost like a template, and leaving space for the regional differences?
Yes, definitely. Less so maybe with electronics equipment. I mean, a camera and a cell phone may look pretty much the same around the world, except for colors or something like that. But certainly with foods at the other extreme, you better worry that people have different taste dispositions.
And one final question. How would you recommend that countries, for instance, the United States, we really have to market ourselves to the rest of the world, especially in these contentious times in which we live, and as we become an increasingly global world?
Frankly, there's just so much you can do. You can't put a false image of a country out to the world without it being a joke or exposed. You find out what your virtues are, and you communicate it to the audiences that are interested in that. There are some countries that are very good for vacationing and tourism and so on, and if that's the strength, they go along that path to promote themselves and get mentions. But with respect to the United States, the brand has been injured, there's no question. A book recently came out about how to repair the American image, but it's going to be through great changes in our policies and in our leaders.
Can you tell us about the book that you're currently writing on poverty?
Yes, I think the title will be Helping the Poor Succeed. This is a problem that has never been solved, and I want to express that it's in the interest of the people who are well off to help the poor get more purchasing power. You know, the people with money can just buy so many things. Maybe another television set, and so on and so forth. But we're going to reach the end of demand at some point, but it's not because there aren't needs. It's just that the people with the needs don't have the means. So part of the book, it's about actually empowerment. As you may know, microfinance has become a great success story, where you give $15 to a woman in Bangladesh to buy a cell phone, and she sells one call at a time to friends, and then she hires other women to do the same in other villages. Professor Prahalad has done a great deal by showing what could happen if you empower the poor to be business-oriented. But there's more to it than that. And we're taking a social marketing approach to both the health issues of the poor, the schooling issues of the poor, and the aspirational levels of the poor. And social marketing is a whole discussion in itself.
It's a great point, and it sounds like a fascinating book. I think what you're saying is that it's in everybody's best interest to continue to help build the burgeoning middle classes around the world.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much.